It just didn't give me a notification. I'm sorry, do you go by Rabbit?
Yes, I go by
Have we met before? I don't know if we've met before.
I don't know if we've met before. I know you have met Brandis before, but probably not me.
All right.
Hi, I'm Rabbit.
Hello, Rabbit.
Mike,
Mike.
This is Rabbit, Mike.
Hello.
I think you've at least on audio met Tracy before.
Yep. And on online way back in the, if nothing else, the D Plus days. I don't know if it go all the way back to the live journal days.
No.
That may be
Probably not.
That may be too far back. But definitely since the D Plus days.
Yes, I remember that. Long time ago.
Anytime.
So
I still miss G
I have
Plus.
done?
Right?
what'd you say, Mike?
What homework should I have done?
Do you know what your favorite adventures are?
How many do I need?
Well, I tried to make a top 3, but I kind of ended up with 4.
Yeah. I might be in a similar boat.
Okay, so, and I'm not entirely sure which is my top 1 and which is my top 2. So,
Now, with these hardcovers, or are we including Fandelver and Icefire?
well, I will talk a little bit about my methods when we start. So,
right.
but ultimately,
So I'm going to do 5,
okay.
and I'm going to include those two.
Yeah, ultimately, I pulled from a list, and I just pulled from the Wikipedia page list, and I could tell what their methods were a little bit.
Yeah.
But that way, I didn't have to make the call. Nobody had to could blame me for it. But write-ins were entirely possible, so you could go with whatever you want. In fact, we have significant electoral votes for a write-in candidate. So,
Interesting. Yeah, I have a top 1, and I guess I'll make up which ones of the rest that I dislike the least.
there you go.
Yeah, they're all kind of like which ones I dislike the least. That's not true.
Well, and part of the issue is that, for me anyway, I have one that I really like, but I've also never run. So I have a hard time putting it on my top 3 list because it appeals to me, but I can't confirm that I like it because I've never run any of it. So.
Oh.
Are these just WotC adventures, or are we doing all adventures?
The only thing that was listed on the list was WotC Adventures, but the write-in that is getting electoral votes is a non-WotC adventure. So there we go. And I suspect...
The third-party candidate.
Fascinating.
That's right. I suspect, if I'm reading the users in chat correctly, that we have some people in the chat who were instrumental in organizing that write-in campaign.
Fascinating.
So, yeah.
Somebody stuffed the box, is what you're saying.
No, somebody got the word out and got voters to vote.
Somebody launched a grassroots campaign.
Yes.
Right.
Well, I'll get started, and then I can talk about sort of where our numbers are and what results we got and what have you. So, let me start recording the audio. And there we are. Where's my script? I don't know. I'm making it up as I go along tonight. All right. We ready?
Yes.
All right. This episode of The Tome Show is brought to you by listeners like you. Thanks for using The Tome's Amazon and DM's Guild affiliate links, and for being patrons at patreon.com/The Tome Show. Welcome to The Tome, a D&D news, reviews, and interviews show, and I'm your Tome host, Jeff Greiner.
And I'm Tracy Hurley, and welcome to the Tome Show Election Night Special. We have our expert pundits, Rabbit Stoddard and Mike Shea. Say hello, Rabbit.
Hello, Rabbit.
And say hello, Mike.
Hello!
And we're going to see what 5th edition D&D adventure has been elected as the best. Whichever adventure wins, they get to rule over all the other adventures for all time.
Or at least until there's another election night special. Who knows? Maybe this will be a every other year or every 4-year tradition. So we should. We were just pre-recording time. We were talking. I was starting to get into the process a little bit that I ended up using for this. So I thought it might be best to have that conversation here so that people following along can tell us or can know what's going on. So a poll went out all over the social medias, a week or two ago. And people were allowed to vote. One time, I set the poll that they could vote one time, but of course that's one time per Google account, right? So who knows if people... It didn't look like there was any shenanigans, but who knows? And they get to also tell us where they live, so we can have both a popular result and an electoral college vote. Except, of course, for simplicity's sake, I gave each state one vote, and I put state in quotes because I also gave a vote to U.S. territories and I gave a vote to outside of the U.S., even though outside of the U.S. was by far had the most people voting. So there we go.
How does the math work if every state has one electoral vote?
Well, we don't worry about that because we're just having fun. I'll share the database with you later, and you can do all the number crunching statistics you want to do.
Nice.
So, also for simplicity, because I didn't want to have to justify making a call about what to include on the official list and what not to include on our official list on the ballot, I just looked at the Wikipedia page for D&D Adventures and took that list. It looked like they were basically doing any product where the adventure was the main part of the product. So it included all of the hardcover adventures. It included Dragon of Icespire, and it included Lost Mines of Phandelver. It did not include the Theros adventures. It did not include Ravnica. It did not include Acquisitions Inc. And it didn't include any third-party publishers, but it did allow for write-ins, so people could write in whatever they wanted. The votes were then tallied, and I basically, to make it simpler, what happened was every time somebody voted for an adventure as the best, I gave it 3 points. If they voted for the second best, they got 2 points. If it was the third best, it got 1 point, and then I tallied it all up. All right. So Mike, how did what shenanigans are there in my methodology?
That I don't know. I mean, I'd have to think about it for a little bit. That feels pretty good to me.
Right.
Right, sure.
Yeah, great choice voting for the win.
Yeah.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
We get a little taste of a little bit of ranked choice-ish voting. So there we are, and I can report now. Let's go ahead and report in on one of our non-battleground states. I can tell you that the state of Alabama voted very clearly for Empire of the Ghouls, a third party.
How many
There was
votes?
1 vote. So there was no question who won. The one voter from Alabama.
By the way, just for the record, that's I believe that to be 100% statistically
yes, that
significant.
is 100% statistical. Yes.
One vote is as many as you need.
So
Right.
So does that make it a rotten borough or just a really aggressive implementation of selectorate theory?
That's a good point. Thoughts right there.
So I can also tell you that we had a total of 126 votes. We had 32 states represented, plus the outside of the U.S. category, which had the most number of votes, and 1 vote from the U.S. territories. So
you say had the most number of votes of as though they were
more
a state.
people voted outside of the U.S. than any individual state.
Right, but there were more votes for all of the U.S.
Yes.
than outside of the U.S.
Absolutely.
Okay, it would have been weird. I mean, it wouldn't be weird, but
Right. So that's where we're at. I can also tell you that let's pick another non-battleground state. I can tell you that California is giving their votes tonight to Waterdeep Dragon Heist. Although Mike might be interested to know, because I know where his favorites are. Mike might be interested to know that Curse of Strahd came in second in that vote and was short by 1 point.
So you asked for predictions. Do we want to give our predictions before you dive too much into other state votes?
I have 30 4 states to go through. Well, I have time, but Tracy's got a little more in our intro to talk about.
So before we get to our predictions and more of the great votes across all the states and across the world, we want to thank our listeners who support the show. Doing so is easy. You can go shopping at DM's Guild or Amazon just like you normally would, but if you go through the links on the tomeshow.com first, we'll get a small percentage, or you can support us directly through Patreon at patreon.com/thetomeshow, just like Hyperlexic, Leonard Pelletier, Jill Sanders, Doug Palmer, and Merrick Blackman.
Hey, Merrick.
Woohoo.
Now I got to take notes while we record as well, so I can remember which states I've mentioned and which ones I haven't, so I don't go back to...
So you're DMing this election is what I'm
it
hearing.
seems like I'm DMing this election, so... So yeah, I thought it might be fun, before we dig in too far into how all of this is going down, I thought it might be fun for folks to make their predictions. Who do you think is going to win the election tonight? And do you think there's going to be a difference between who wins the electoral and who wins the popular? So is there somebody who'd like... I'm not going to predict because I tallied the votes. I know the winners. I have all the numbers in front of me right now. I have a spreadsheet to the left of me. I have a legal pad in front of me, and I have Post-it notes all around. So I have all the data. Mike's thinking really hard.
I'll tell you then.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out. So if each state has one electoral vote, and so it's basically that each state has even 7 votes, and it has a top one, and another state only has 1 vote, like Empire of the Ghouls. That means, like, which state had Empire of the Ghouls?
Alabama.
So Alabama had
Single
Empire
voter.
of the Ghouls.
So
And
the one vote in Alabama is worth the same as the 30 votes from outside of the
37
U.S.
votes. Gotcha. Okay. All right. I don't know how the hell to predict that.
Well, who do you think who's going to win the popular vote? Do you think?
And
Yeah, sure. Let's start with you.
I think First Estrada is going to win the popular vote.
duh.
Rabbit seems to agree. Why do the two of you think Curse of Strahd is going to be the most popular?
Because everybody loves Ravenloft.
I have 3 sources of data that tell me that that's likely. One is it's the most reviewed of the adventures on Amazon by like a good 30% higher than the next. It is, if you look at how often it was mentioned on Twitter over the past 6 years, it's the only hardback adventure that has been continually discussed on Twitter, more so than after its launch. Like, it actually had a spike and then stayed pretty steady and continually comes up. Wizards of the Coast put out a new version of it because it's super popular.
It's the only one that they've published twice.
Right. And Beetle and Grimm went back and made a Beetle and Grimm version of it like years after it was released instead of being the new one. They did the new one too.
They haven't yet. It's launching soon, or it's
That's
shipping
right.
soon.
Yeah. So I think that's why I think it's going to be number one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this election was rigged because we can't vote on 4th edition adventures like Keep on the Shadowfell. Because I'm wearing my 4E shirt tonight.
Didn't he? Yeah, he specifically said 5th edition adventures, right? What is Tracy? What is your favorite? What is your Keep on the Shadowfell is your number one 4th edition one?
It was the first adventure I ever played, so of course I'm gonna vote for it.
Sure. But, it's available for free. Like, anybody can download it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome.
I think if we opened it up to 4th edition adventures, we'd have to open it up to all of the editions, and I suspect Keep on the Shadowfell then wouldn't rank. It'd be all...
No, then Hand of Doom would be
it'd be all 1st and 2nd edition that would take the whole thing.
It'd be like Tomb of Horrors, and then I would rig Georgia for Caverns of Cascadon, and I
bet you I6 Ravenloft would be higher.
Yeah, you know what though? Yeah, I think I might still,
That'd be Curse of Strahd
I
again.
think Ravenloft would still do well. Yeah.
And then some trolls would go, but Carcosa, and then we'd have to shut down the stream.
See, this is part of why I didn't do that is because the list would be too long. The ballot would be unreadable. Also, I think I didn't do that because, then people would start voting for, and I would have to discuss adventures that I never played, and some of which I'd never heard of.
So Mike, am I understanding correctly also that Curse of Strahd is your preferred candidate as well, or?
No.
Okay.
It's number 3 on my list.
I say,
Gotcha. It was.
although I can look at,
It's number 2 on mine.
I can look at.
It's my number 1 hardback.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. See, I
Now-
think I can look at your. I think I can pick your vote out of the spreadsheet because I had you test it. So when you went back and revoted, it marked it as that you changed your vote. So.
Oh, interesting. I don't even remember if I voted for real though.
Oh, then maybe that's not you. Who knows? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that.
No, I mean I might have just been clicking stuff randomly to see if your thing worked.
Maybe that was your wife.
Hanging. That could have been a hanging Chad.
It might be worth taking a moment to mention Virginia, because that's where you're voting from, right? Virginia was the most problematic state of all of the states.
Yay for Virginia. How was it
That's-
problematic?
Because Virginia had 3 people vote, and none of them voted for the same thing on any of the 3. Like there was 0 overlap.
So that means they each get
sounds
one
right.
electoral
that means
vote for each
there's
one
a
of them.
3-way tie, so they each got 1/3 of an electoral vote.
Wow. No, I think they should each get one
That's-
vote.
That's hilarious.
Right? So Virginia, there was a few ties, but Virginia was the only 3-way tie.
It's a reason why we use electoral voting for large populations rather than extremely small sample sizes. Especially when you have 130 something votes and you've split it among 54.
52, but yeah.
Counting. 52. Since 50 plus.
Plus,
I don't know. I guess.
But I don't
now
think
you vote
that
from
many of those
District of
never
Columbia?
voted, right?
yeah, we have 30. We had 32 states represented, so I guess 34 total divisions.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, counting, and did we have anything from the District of Columbia?
I don't remember if I even listed District of Columbia as an option.
They get dissed again.
Oh.
I think
Right. That's just like in real life.
Yeah, they had to like
Taxation without representation.
I can't.
man.
I might have included it. I don't remember. I remember thinking about it.
Oh god. Sorry.
So Virginia went 3 ways between Curse of Strahd, Out of the Abyss.
Really? Somebody had that as their top
Yeah,
one.
and that 1/3 electoral vote was the only vote that Out of the Abyss got.
I think they even read out of the.
And then Waterdeep Dragon Heist was the other one in the 3-way tie in
Yeah.
Virginia.
I bet I'm
Really?
I'm betting that Waterdeep Dragon Heist was high. We haven't given our predictions yet, have we?
Well, you
Yeah, that-
predicted that Curse. Well, at least 2 of you have predicted that Curse of Strahd would do the best. Tracy,
Yeah,
did
but I-
Tracy, did you have a prediction on which adventure would do the best?
Which one? I'll do the Hunt for Thessal Hydra.
Okay, as a write-in, that was the.
No, it's on here.
Was it?
I have
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's the the Stranger Things box set one.
Oh, yeah, it was. Yeah, no,
All right.
And that's your prediction for
Yeah.
number 1. All right. Go with
that's
it.
interesting. I'm gonna spoil you right now and tell you that got no votes.
Yay. Yeah.
The hunt for the
So-
Told me it's
Well,
rigged.
no, I'm not, and you know what? That's not necessarily true. I know it didn't win.
Any
It
states?
didn't get first place. Nobody put it as their favorite, and it didn't get any states.
Had the best
When
mini.
I count that,
Oh
it did
god.
come with a mini. When I counted up the popular vote, I just focused on
It's a little precious.
for popular vote. I just focused on who won or who was voted for best. I didn't do all the other ranked voting, just because time got out. I did a bunch of calculations this morning before work, and then I left the paper on my office desk, so I had to redo it like I don't know an hour ago. So I didn't get to all the right choice for the popular vote, but. Oh, you know what? No, that's not true. I did. I can see all my numbers here.
There you go. See,
Can-
this is why you do it. Never mind.
And yet it still didn't get any votes. So even in the popular vote.
Cloud-based spreadsheets, Jeff. Cloud-based
Well,
spreadsheets.
I have the results on the cloud-based spreadsheet, but
There you go.
Can I give my other predictions?
yeah, what do you think?
For like what I think are like the top ones. I think the top ones would be Curse of Strahd, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, Descent into Avernus, and Storm King's Thunder.
Okay, whoa. Curse of Strahd.
Pretty much exactly.
Curse of Strahd,
Curse of
Dragon
Strahd.
Heist.
Dragon
Avernus.
Heist, Avernus, Descent in Baldur's Gate, Descent into Avernus, and Storm King's Thunder. I think is on that
King's
list.
Thunder.
So
I bet you it's in the top 5.
So that's identical to what I predicted, except for 4, I would guess, of Rime of the Frost Maiden rather than Storm King's Thunder, just because it's new. And new hotness, even though it's actually the one that I didn't even crack open for this because no hate to the wonderful people who worked on it and get into it, but I hate winter content and I avoid it whenever possible. So it is my least favorite thing, even though I am actually in a Wintermount campaign right now. And the setting is not what I'm enjoying about that campaign. Because, cold weather, everything's white. Why? No freezing content. But I'm still guessing, because it is very well written and it is very popular, that it'll be up there.
Here's what I can tell you. So far, some of your predictions are going to make you look smart, and some of them are not.
Well,
For both of you. So there you go.
You'd have to be smart.
Yeah, like being wrong doesn't mean you're not smart.
Yeah. It doesn't political punditry.
That's true. That's a good point. Never admit you're wrong.
I'll tell you what, because, I don't actually run published adventures, ever. I don't think I've ever done it. Most of my experience of adventures is reading them to steal things and playing Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms, which bases all of their campaigns on the actual adventures, and they're actually very faithful. Although Dragon Heist is really weird because Jarlaxle's one of the PCs in
One of the NPCs.
Idle Champions.
Oh, yeah, right.
And that gets really weird if you have read Dragon Heist at all.
Sure.
But it's actually great. They do a cool job with it. So whichever one of these comes out on top, I'll actually run at least one session of that campaign.
There are stakes now.
Yeah, I think I'm in the exact opposite. I have run every one of the published adventures except for Mad Mage. I think Mad Mage is the only one I have not run.
Interesting.
Of the list, I think.
Speaking of Mad Mage, should I tell you which state it won?
Yes,
It won a state?
I'm fascinated to know.
Were there more than 3 votes from this state?
Yeah, no, it did win it. Oh, no. I'm trying to find it now. There it is.
So Mad Mage was on the poll.
Mad Mage was on the poll because I didn't make the list. If it was me, I would not have put Mad Mage on the poll because I still maintain it is not an adventure. But
Well, wait, hold on. Technically, it follows Dragon Heist.
Yeah.
I mean, chronologically.
I mean, it's okay to be wrong, Jeff.
if Mad Mage had a story, then I would agree with you. But since it has no story, then it has no chronology. So there we are.
It kind of does.
It does. It totally does.
It kind of does.
You're wrong.
Yeah, Sam's
wrong,
in the chat
Jeff.
telling me I'm wrong too.
Jeff, Sam is telling you wrong. Sam is one of those guys where, like, if Sam is telling you you're wrong, you really
Well, no,
ought to
see,
listen.
here's the thing. I've had this discussion. Sam and I have debated it back and forth all the time.
That doesn't mean you're not wrong.
No, and I am willing to recognize that the world thinks I'm wrong, but I don't have to buy in.
I listen to one half of Sam telling my husband that he's wrong on a every other weekly basis, and typically Sam is correct. But...
Sam is also, even though I have run every one of these published adventures, I guarantee you he has read them more thoroughly than I have.
That could be.
And Brandis is going to get me for that later, but
So
that's
I
all
can
right.
tell you though that
Oh,
Dungeon
but-
of the Mad Mage won a state that had one vote in it, and
Sounds
that is Connecticut.
I believe it.
Somebody in Connecticut. Ooh, I just realized I completely skipped a state, a battleground state too. And we actually had 33 states represented. I just realized in my
And still not the District of Columbia.
Tracy checked. Go ahead.
The District of Columbia was in fact in the list of places you could pick from.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so I didn't hose
Yay.
them. They just didn't vote. So
All right.
Jared in chat mentions that according to your wrong logic about Mad Mage, if that were true, then nearly almost all first edition adventures wouldn't be adventures.
okay, I'm all right with that.
Even though it says adventure on the
Yeah,
cover.
no, I'm fine with admitting that they mislabeled a whole bunch of products.
About the time you were born.
Warfare.
Right?
I have a process question, Jeff.
Yes.
Methodology.
What are we
Let's talk about
counting
its methodology.
What are we call ground states in this?
I don't know.
You've been referring to
Wow.
states as
I'm literally making this up as I go. So maybe the battleground states are the actual election battleground states. Who knows?
Well, there's like which states would? There's no way to come with this. Like which states would be more likely to vote for one adventure over another? And I'm not sure.
Nobody has that data except maybe me a little bit.
So which states actually had two that were close for number one?
I can tell you there's let's see. California was within 1 point. Not even 1 vote, 1 point. Georgia was within 1 point.
Since I know at least two people who voted in
There you
Georgia.
go.
Me and Brand.
Although Georgia also had relatively decent numbers.
Not
We
unlikely.
had eight or 9 votes out of Georgia. So in Georgia,
A lot more in Virginia.
Curse of Strahd won by 1 point, beating out Lost Mines of Phandelver.
Nah.
So,
When are we gonna have some
and
arguments?
Tomb of Annihilation. Well,
I'm here for the arguments.
should we go back to Dungeon of the Mad Mage? Is that what you're here for?
I'm not defending Dungeon of the Mad Mage, even though it is an adventure.
Do you want to rehash our mini
Just
discussions?
because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not an adventure.
No,
Right.
I like it for what it is. I just don't like it as an adventure because it's not.
Yes, sir.
Mike, we could go back to the many arguments we've had about Descent into Avernus because we have
Yes.
dramatically
And
different.
so is
opinions
that?
about
Can you say where Descent showed up in the list? Because probably those people are wrong.
I can tell you this: Descent into Avernus won 1 electoral vote.
Wow.
And it was in my state where I was 50% of the voters.
You said it did. That's where it won.
It won in Indiana, and I was 50% of the votes.
Which
So,
which means you voted for it.
Yes,
so
As
there
the
were
best-
two voters, and both of you voted for Descent into
I
Avernus?
voted for it as my favorite.
Wow. Wow, you're
And
wrong.
the other person who voted from Indiana, I think, put it as like their 3rd place, or first, second.
And that was enough.
So that was enough,
It gave
right?
You're hurting Sam, by the way.
Yeah, no, I'm.
So like I have to help channel Sam.
I actually like Descent into Avernus up to a point.
Which point? Like up to the page after the front cover?
I was going to say at the point where anything actually happens, but a lot of the way it's constructed and a lot of the things that go into building up to the adventure I really like and I think are interesting. It's just most of the stuff that actually happens during the adventure I would not personally steal. Because again, my criteria for is this a good adventure has to do with, hey, how much stuff would I steal from this?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good.
Because otherwise, like Tyranny of Dragons wouldn't even rate.
Oh, I love Tyranny of
Dragons.
But then you never make a choice in it. That matters.
You might be right. I got that.
But the PCs don't get to make any choices that matter until sort of, kind of, a little bit before the very last battle in the whole series of adventures, like the whole Tyranny of Dragons thing.
I got to think about that.
It's on pretty heavy rails. It's on pretty heavy rails.
It is. It's definitely a heavy rail adventure. And the problem is when I ran it, my players had lots of choices because I put them in, but I don't know that they're in the book.
Right. So there's lots of.
But that's also my argument about Descent into Avernus, which is like that book's not usable.
Right.
Yeah, there's like stuff to rip off.
You can't actually run
now.
Tyranny.
In fairness to my vote, I was really back and forth, and we're getting a bit into my preferences, right? But I was really back and forth on Descent into Avernus and Curse of Strahd, which are the two adventures besides Dragon Heist that I've spent the most amount of time with. And I was really back and forth, and I probably edged out Descent into Avernus. Like, there are things I like about it where Curse of Strahd doesn't shine for me, and we can talk about.
Is that why you have the War Machine sitting right behind you?
Well, no, I just have it. I just
have
it there because it makes a decent prop for streams. That and my D&D art and things. But no, I also knew that, or I suspected that Curse of Strahd would do really well, and so for variety, I voted for Descent into Avernus. So,
okay.
That said,
so you're throwing the vote.
But it's real. I mean, the two of them are real close for me. Curse of Strahd, I think, is a much better constructed adventure. It's got more. It's tighter. There's less that needs to be adjusted or filled in. But Curse of Strahd also has a bit of the conclusion of Curse of Strahd, if that's your campaign, is a little bit of a letdown because the big victory is everything goes back to the way it was before you played the adventure. Like, you didn't really accomplish much. You just kind of got away.
You get away. Well,
it's Ravenloft.
Right. No, you're right. And that's where, like, Descent into Avernus, I think, has a clear narrative. Now, it has some humps you got to get over, but it has a clear narrative from beginning to end and a story that it's trying to tell. And it's a story that I really like because I am a sucker for the Blood War. Like, I'll dive into the Blood War at any opportunity.
I think with Curse of Strahd, well, hey, we really like Ravenloft. We know how to run a Ravenloft adventure. Also, it's Ravenloft, so it's very circumscribed. The PCs aren't going to go off and faff around doing a bunch of other stuff because once you've passed those mists, it's game on. We know what we are. We know what we're getting. We understand it. And Curse of Strahd does a really good job of delivering that. Mm-hmm. It's like... what the Tripod song, get to the, I don't know, what rating is this stream? Are we expecting younger viewers or whatever? Sorry for language.
If we have younger listeners, Sam will take care of it.
There you go. Right. So it's like get to the effing monkey. Right. We came here for Strahd. We're here to see Strahd. Yay, Strahd.
Right.
We survived Strahd. It's like you don't play Tomb of Horrors to worry about much else other than surviving.
Right.
Because the whole intent of that is how far can I get in this before I die?
Right. And so in the differentiation I make then is that Curse of Strahd is a great adventure in a campaign, but Descent into Avernus is a campaign on its own.
I'd argue that Curse of Strahd is a really good campaign on its own too. I mean, the two times I ran it, it was a 1 to 12 or 1 to 11 campaign, and I think the idea that it doesn't, because it is, I kind of agree with the idea that, like, it once you defeat Strahd, you get out of the mists and everything is fine. If that's the whole goal of the campaign, that's actually okay. If it's part of a campaign, you're like, well, you left right exactly at the point you entered. That would be pretty lame otherwise.
I mean, if you're getting into the well, what's your demographic? I mean, I certainly know game designers who design with an end in mind for the campaign. As in, there's a condition after which the game is over because we are grown-ups and we can't commit to long, rambling, ongoing campaigns that are soap opera length epics frequently. And I get that. That isn't actually how I do. I'm here for the soap opera. But so I'd be more inclined to play a Descent into Avernus type thing where there's not a clear, okay, you've defeated Strahd, everything's normal and seen, but it's still going to be a lot tighter to write if you're writing for that. And it helps that Ravenloft atmospherically and aesthetically is very clear. So you kind of get a leg up anyway. Now, not that people can't completely ruin it and crap the bed doing it, but at least in terms of structure and delivery, they didn't. So it works, and it works well. Yeah. Still not my favorite, but I have nothing bad to say about it as far as an adventure in itself.
Rabbit, what is your favorite adventure?
Waterdeep Dragon Heist. For really one reason, which is I'm a Jarlaxle fangirl, and it's the one with Jarlaxle in it. So
Fair.
That's basically it. I know theoretically, well, if you're listening to this, probably nothing is a spoiler for you, since you have an opinion about which is the best. Theoretically, he's one of the villains, but no, not really. He's not a villain.
And even when he's even in that story, if you play it so that he is the villain, he's still not necessarily the villain. He's an antagonist, but not a villain.
He's not like the Xanathar.
Right.
Yeah.
He's the villain, like what's his name? Thothamen is the villain in Conan. No,
Okay.
He's really not. If you're actually paying any attention, it's like heck, we should probably be on his side. Most of what he's doing is actually fine. But I don't know. There were some other cool things. I'm also a sucker for. One of the things I know some friends of mine didn't like about it, I like the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're great. And also, because again, all of these are in Idle Champions, they used them very well. And the dialogue was freaking hilarious in Idle Champions.
Yeah, no.
And incidentally, they run Mad Mage as part of the greater Dragon Heist campaign, and some of the stuff that happens in the course of Mad Mage in Idle Champions is fantastic.
So Dragon Heist made my top list as well. That was my number 3. And when it first came out, I think I put it immediately to the top of my list. I loved it. I loved everything about it, and then I ran it and I found some of its warts when I ran it, and I found some of the spots that needed some tightening up, and so I'm willing to adjust my take on Descent into Avernus at some point because I'm still running.
Because you know deep down you're wrong.
I'm still running it, and I haven't run into those issues yet. So maybe I will.
Yeah, I think that's when I look at my list and when I think about all the arguments that I've had with many, many people in many places about my favorite adventures. To me, the good adventures are the ones that are the least fixer-uppers. And the more of a fixer-upper an adventure is, the lower on its list it goes for me. Beyond, I think, things like theme and the overall story and stuff like that. Like, if I have to do a lot of work, what am I paying $50 for, right? And that's probably my biggest argument with Dragon Heist, or not with Dragon Heist. A little bit with Dragon Heist, but certainly with Avernus, is I think it might be the biggest fixer-upper adventure of all of them.
Huh.
Right? Like I've run whatever it is, 12 public.
I would have said Tomb of Annihilation for that.
No, Tomb. I ran Tomb twice, and Tomb has like 4 big things that you really need to keep an eye on. But if you know to keep an eye on them, you really don't have to do a lot of work to get it to work.
So my problem with Tomb of Annihilation as I was going through it is that they have a bunch of encounters that are really cool encounters, and they only give you anything for the bad outcome. They don't give you anything to work with for good outcomes on a lot of the random encounters they have in the dungeon. And that really annoyed me. I sort of didn't understand what a lot of the stuff was even doing here. And I kind of, and maybe it's because I came in with this is going to be like Tomb of Horrors. And I felt like, well, they sort of kind of tried to do Tomb of Horrors. And then they go, well, let's slap some story on it. But all they did was slap some story on it. They didn't actually take the time to make it matter once you get into the dungeon. Everything before you get in the dungeon is
that's so one of the four things.
Really awesome.
Yeah, if I have my kind of my big list of the four things to keep an eye on. And one of them is recognizing how thematically different the dungeon is from the rest of the adventure. Right. And yeah, part of it is that, like, I remember one of my players said, I think like when we were about halfway through, he was like, there's these crazy big puzzle rooms, and none of the actual answers make any sense. So there's no actual way to kind of noodle through how this ought to work, because half the time the whole drive is to get you to pull the wrong lever.
Right. It feels like.
And that's a fair criticism.
Yeah. I mean, Tomb of Horrors is unfair. It's supposed to be. Sorry. It's something crazy we do at a con when we're drunk and we just want to see if we can optimize the characters long enough to survive.
Right.
Which I think that's a great game if that's the game you want to play. But kind of don't tart it up. Just be honest about what you are. And it especially bugs me because Chult could be really cool and really, an interesting place to run a campaign, and they've just sort of doubled down on, why would anyone live here? It's full of horrible murder stuff, and it gets into some kind of unsavory exoticism kind of things.
Yeah.
But, like, I'd run the Tomb of Annihilation itself as a pull-apart, start as a 20-level character, build it however you want. Let's see how far you get. No, this isn't fair. Duh. It's not supposed to be. And I'd run everything before the dungeon. But at the moment you actually go into a tomb, I don't know, I think I'd have to rewrite the entire place. Although I'd keep the spirits, because the spirits are rad.
Yeah, I mean, like, I look back and I think one of my groups, I think, had a little bit more, like, if you think about sort of the themes of excitement versus hopelessness, your upward and downward beat kind of stuff. It was a bunch of downward beats. They really enjoyed, I think when my group was able to hack the dungeon by going into the rooms and chambers and halls that were actually designed by the people who were making the dungeon work, and then actually like had a nice interview with Withers, the guy who actually runs the dungeon for Acererak. And that was one of them. Like, they thought they were going to have to fight this like half lich guy, and instead he's giving them surveys about how horrible the rest of the dungeon was, on like a 1 to 10 scale. And that was, they enjoyed, they had a lot of fun with that. And so I think, having run it, how close did I run it to the book? I ran it closer to the book than I think most of the adventures that I've run. And both of the groups and myself enjoyed it. And I didn't feel like I had to do nearly as much work, certainly as like Descent in Avernus, where I feel like I have to rewrite 2/3 of it. The whole introduction doesn't work. When you get to the paths, like many people have talked about how the paths are a mess. That they're just a series of fetch quests for a bunch of people throughout the whole place. Like, I'm running it, and I'm in the middle of running that one now. And I'm not unhappy that I had to run it, but I've already had to have a conversation with my group of like, do we want to keep going with this or not? Are we having fun here, or is this really kind of lame and sad and like, you're stumbling along in hell and nobody really cares, and my group was like, no, we're good. Like, we're all right. It's happening. And I was like, okay, we'll keep going. But I don't think I've hardly ever had to have that conversation with any of my.
That has not been my experience with, like, the intro needed some work, but I didn't.
I had to buy a whole other adventure to get the intro to work.
I didn't.
Wow. Which one?
I haven't.
Fall of Elturel.
I haven't invested more in supplemental stuff for Avernus than I have in any other adventure I've run. I've tacked on.
Yeah, but I never. So and that's one of the thoughts that I had about like Strahd. One of the reasons why Strahd is my number one is that it feels like it needs even less work to run.
Well, it has the easiest hook in the world, because the mist coming, you're just there. Like,
yeah, and it also has like it seemed to hit the perfect balance of like how much information should I have about locations that you're going to run into when you're wandering around in Barovia. Like they have nice dungeon maps. It's got good descriptions of the chambers that are going on, good stories. Argynvost Holt is a lot of fun. The whole, what's that crazy lich place?
Amber Temple.
Down south. Amber Temple's a lot of fun. So there's just a lot of neat places with interesting detailed descriptions that gave me enough to be able to run them, which was kind of my opposite experience from Storm King's Thunder, where it's like, here's 140 locations and we're going to give you 3 lines each. Right. And that one also required a lot of work for me, which is why it's not high on my list.
Yeah, Storm King's Thunder, I struggle with as well because, and it comes back again to, like, I think you and I have very similar qualifications for what we're looking for in adventures, but our priorities of which of those is more important are different, right? I absolutely, like, a bare minimum for me is an adventure has to have a compelling narrative that runs from beginning to end and has a satisfying conclusion.
Descent into Avernus doesn't have that. It totally doesn't. Hey, you got conscripted by the Flaming Fist mercenaries.
You're talking about the introduction.
Next thing you know, you're at 5th level. You're going into hell. I'm not
going to debate the introduction to Avernus with you anymore. We've had this conversation 7,000 times.
Still wrong. I don't know. Against that one? I don't know. I can't remember. Do you have a good argument against that, or do you agree with that assessment?
No, I think the introduction needs help. I don't care. Like, if an adventure needs help, I don't care where it needs help. The location of the help is irrelevant. And in fact, arguably to me, it's worse if it needs help at the end, because that's much harder to do in a satisfying way. And that's where Storm King's Thunder falls down for me, is that it doesn't. Like, the whole story is about the ordning shattering, and then the ending has nothing to do with the ordning. It's more just dealing with the consequences of it. So Storm King's Thunder I struggle with because it doesn't have a cohesive narrative all the way through to the end.
I didn't have that problem when I ran it. Like, the whole King Lear storyline worked for me for the most part. And I felt like the what I really enjoyed and kind of fell into it did need Storm King's Thunder. I definitely did work, right, and that's why it's not high on my list. But I enjoyed this story because I loved. I tied it into Horde of the Dragon Queen, so I had it kind of as the 5-year later version of Horde of the Dragon Queen, and I kind of love that you have this villain who orchestrated this other massive event, and then she's kind of behind the scenes behind it all. And then you go and face her. Like, that worked for me. The whole.
Well, it's worth noting that the voters agreed with us because Storm King's Thunder got no electoral votes.
Really?
I'm got zero. Although I can tell you, because we've had a lengthy conversation, or you and Rabbit had a lengthy conversation about it. Tomb of Annihilation did get an electoral vote from Oregon. The state of Oregon, with multiple voters, preferred Tomb of Annihilation.
But still only one electoral vote.
Still only one.
Interesting.
So I thought it would be worth getting back into some of our votes as we're, an hour into the stream and like 40 minutes into the recording. So.
Yeah. I'm not going to give that any hate, actually. I mean, there are lots of things in it that I can see to like. Mm-hmm. But
it's not high on your list.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that it didn't place higher.
Okay. So let's see. What state do you want to hear about next? And I'll tell you if I have them.
My home state of Illinois.
Your home state. Oh, Illinois actually had a decent number of votes, and it went for Curse of Strahd.
Surprising.
And it went for Curse of Strahd with relatively. It didn't have it wasn't real close. Empire of the Ghouls was number 2 in Illinois with 4 points less.
Really? Oh, that's how many 4 points less, which was how many?
Illinois had, let's see, 7 or 8 votes.
How many voted for Empire of the Ghouls?
2 people put it as their number 1.
Wow. As a write-in.
As a write-in. Empire of the Ghouls performed really
Yeah, I really
well
wanna
as a
run it.
write-in.
Yeah, I really want to run that one.
Yeah, I've got it as well, and haven't had a chance to give it a good, thorough look through. So I definitely need to put that on my list. So I think
Sam wants to know about New York.
Sam wants to know about New York. New York was another one that had a decent number of votes. And because I see him talking about it in the chat, I know how he voted, so I know exactly which line was his. New York was one of the states where Curse of Strahd did not win. It lost by 2 points to
Fascinating.
the Lost Mines of Phandelver.
Oh, okay.
Really?
That's a good.
Yeah.
So Phandelver's one of the very few that I've played any of. Actually, we played the opening of it, and my takeaway was, oh right, that's why I don't do published adventures. And Brandis was running it, and I love Brandis's GM style, so that was all fine. It was just, wow, I'm not interested in anything that's happening here. I have grabbed exactly 0, so it's very far down on it for me.
It's number 1 on my list.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What do you like?
Oh, no, I guess Dragon of Icespire Peak is number 1.
Yeah. But what do you like about Lost Mines of Phandelver?
It feels so. And this is an arguable point that I recognize. But like, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, a game that's been around for 45 years, and it feels like the most straightforward standard D&D adventure. Right? It's like you're on a caravan, you get attacked by goblins, you go to the goblin hideout, you find their bugbear leader. There's some interesting places there. Like you can, do the goblins flood the chambers or not? Do you sneak up? I don't know how many groups I've run it, probably a dozen times, and lots of times, in at least half of those, one of the characters befriended a wolf and now has a wolf pet because of that. Right?
Aww.
They climb up the chimney and end up in the bugbear's lair. Because they snuck up a different way. So there's a lot of different ways to approach the goblin hideout, which is neat. But it's still like a generic, straightforward D&D adventure. Like it's not anything weird.
It's real solid.
It isn't. It doesn't have an adult blue dragon that flies over your head and wrecks the village in front of you. It's not one of the 15 world-ending plot lines that every other giant adventure has. It's just you're on a cart, you get attacked by goblins, you go to the hideout, and then chapter 2 is you go to the town. I'm trying to remember if I got my chapters right. You go to the town, and now you've got a nice town, and it sort of expands a little bit more. I think the Red Brand hideout. I get chapter 2 and 3 mixed up. I think chapter 2 you go and do a bunch of odd jobs, right? So you're kind of sent around the area to do a bunch of odd jobs, but a lot of those are kind of fun. One interesting thing, talking about like how valuable an adventure is to strip for parts, that if you look at the dungeons that are in the adventure, they hit like every major kind of dungeon that you would expect to need a map for. It's got a ruined castle. It's got caves. It's got an underground hideout. It's got, like all of the maps that it has are totally reusable. You can just churn them 90 degrees and you have a totally different map, So if you think about it like as a product, can I run this? Can I use this and squeeze it for information for lots of other places for $10, right? Like it costs 5 times less than the other adventures.
Right, and I agree with you in that it's really solid. It's very straightforward. It works well. It's as Evil John is pointing out, it's not exactly high drama, and I do like getting to the point where things are high powered and we're playing fantasy superheroes a little bit. Like I like getting to that kind of story, and it doesn't do that.
I run I run Nobilis at all, and I enjoy running Nobilis. So there you go.
Yeah.
But
Lost Mines is about as solid as and then Icespire Peak I think is about as solid a starter adventure as I've seen.
And
that's why Lost Mines, even though I've never actually played it, I had to include on my number 4 on my list of top 3.
And talking about questions.
It sounds like I should give Lost Mines another look-see, because it sounds like it'll scratch some of the Caverns of Cascatan nostalgia that I have, and I probably would have enjoyed playing it when I was 8. and I might enjoy running it, but I don't think it's something that I would have a great time playing, but I might have a good time running it.
Yeah, the other
or mining it.
your criticism of that made me sit back and have I got to think about this. That your criticism of Tyranny of Dragons, that you never actually make a choice. The groups that I've run through Phandelver, there are tons of choices there, tons of different people you can ally with. You have this mayor who's kind of like working against you because he's actually like in the hands of the red brands. And then so there's lots of different, and then all those little odd jobs that you take. Many times it's like, do you want to fight the guy, or are you going to ally with him, or are you going to come out with some other way? And like I said, I've run it a bunch of times, and almost every time how the players approach it is different than the others. So unlike Tyranny of Dragons, there feels like there's lots of opportunity for the players to make choices about how they're going to approach the situations that are there, which I think is so vital to a good D&D game.
Okay, definitely sold. These campaign ads would have made a difference to me before the election. I'm sorry, Tracy.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I wanted to jump in just to agree with Mike because it's actually is one of the few adventures I've run. And it was because it came out. This was the one that came out with 5th edition, right?
Yeah, it was the first 5th edition adventure. Yeah.
And so I was still going to conventions then, and I ran it again and again and again. And every group did it somewhat differently, which was great for me running it, because otherwise it does get a little boring.
Yeah, it does have one flaw that almost every one of the 5th edition adventures has that drives me bananas. It loves to kill first level characters. Not to apply emotion to an adventure,
they're
but
just so squishy.
the designers don't seem to want people to actually play D&D.
Well, yeah, no,
and so they write adventures that cost $50 that kill first level
characters are so squishy. And yet you want, like, everybody wants to start their adventure with like high action, crazy fun, but first level characters can't do that, right? So it's
you see, this is what I liked about 4th edition. You could start as a first level character and have fun.
Yep.
And now we're back to, well, okay, if you want to start and feel like a hero, you got to start at 3rd level.
Yep.
2nd level in a couple of classes, but you probably want to start your campaign at the same level. So you may as well start at 3rd level, because at first your class doesn't even have the thing that makes it the class yet.
For what it's worth, grab it. Ben McFarland, who writes and works for Kobold Press, and I believe is responsible for all of our Empire of the Ghouls votes, says that you would really like Courts of the Shadow Fae. He's betting.
Yeah, I'm seeing that in the chat. I have not heard of that one. I'll have to ask Brandis, and then I will hear its whole life story, because Brandis knows all of these things. And but I will definitely check that out, Ben.
There you go.
If I can, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tracy.
I was going to change the topic so we can decide not to go with it. I was kind of interested in this analysis of Tyranny of Dragons, as we were talking through. We haven't talked about it yet.
No, we haven't talked about it yet, and I can tell you, the Tyranny of Dragons got a few popular votes, but no electoral votes.
I'll make an argument for it. It's not on my top list, but I think it is the campaign that I remember the most, probably because it was like the first campaign that I ran. And it also has a fatal flaw. Talk about another one that kills first level characters. Right. Like I have players who are like, I will fight any dragon you throw at me, but do not put a rat swarm on me. Right? Because of the number of people that got killed by rat swarms in there. And it was so harsh that they actually went back and fixed it. And now it's actually well designed, where you have one encounter against like 5 kobolds, and then you're level 2, and then you go into the village, and you're like, so much better.
And it's worth noting that Kobold Press was the studio that they used to design it.
Correct.
And Ben is there, who again works for Kobold Press a lot. It's talking about how, and he's right, that it really suffered because they had to design it, and the rules for 5th edition weren't even done while they were designing the adventure. So
I remember that, because there's like a scene where like you face 4 assassins and you're like level 6. And it's like the assassin originally was like challenge rating 2, and then suddenly became challenge rating 7. And they're like way harder.
So yeah, I see one of the chat comments that it's a 1,000-mile long rail, which is
Yes.
Basically,
And
what I was.
that to me is its fatal flaw is really one chapter in the first book where you have, it's so particular about how you basically sneak into a caravan and go all the way. I got the map up on the wall here, right? Where do you go? But it's like 1,500 mile. It's this crazy ass long journey. And the whole time you're supposed to have this like crazy intrigue, and no group, like, it's so easy for your group to just miss the caravan, and then you're like totally screwed, right? Like the whole rest of the adventure doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. DM Samuel says it's a 4-month journey.
There's a bunch of places in it where it really wants you to do exactly one thing, which to me that's the kiss of death for any adventure. Anything that requires the players to read the scroll work on the fountain and be in exactly the right place at exactly the right time, to me, just have you run anything for people?
Well, and so my thing with Tyranny of Dragons, because I can accept. I've played enough first and second edition. I can accept that there's only one possible solution to a problem, and that the whole thing is on rails. Like I can work with that, but the thing that drives me crazy about that one is that you spend so much time dealing with the dragon masks, getting them or losing them or whatever, and then in the end, it doesn't matter. Like you spend,
because it can't matter.
You spend
right?
half the adventure doing this thing, and then it has zero impact on the story.
Right, because
it can't matter. Because if it mattered, you'd stop the whole storyline in the first chapter. You get the first mask, you bust it over a table, and you're like, "Yay, no Queen of Dragons."
And here's one of the fatal flaws of. It's very easy to wind up here, but fatal flaws of any adventure. I don't even like this in video games a lot of the time, which is, well, all of the interest comes from the really horrible thing you're trying to prevent happening, so we need to make it happen.
Right. Like, no matter what you do, it's the dragon's showing up. Yeah.
The only time I liked this was old TSR video game, Dark Sun: Wake of the Ravager.
Okay.
The Tarrasque is going to wake up, and but they made it matter how many towns did you recruit, so how many people show up to help you fight the Tarrasque. Right. That was interesting. There was some level of choice, but here we don't really have any of that. Although the one thing they do with that I kind of don't mind is there's a fight that you can't win because the whole point of it is to sell the bad guy. And we've all played JRPGs or games where you come up in a fight, or Sultan Sanctuary, where you have a fight. There's basically no way to win this fight, but they're not going to kill you. It is to set it up for you to win it later when you're badass. And they do that one okay.
Is that Cryonax?
Oh God, I forget the name of the guys.
Yeah, the dragon guy in the beginning.
Yeah, they're trying to sell that he's an unstoppable badass, and there's other people that they spend a lot of time building up as unstoppable badasses, and you find them, and they're beat up and imprisoned, and I guess they weren't that much of a badass because they're totally unconscious to people that we wipe the floor with. So fairly easily.
Sam pointed out to me a while ago on the chat that I never actually finished announcing the results from New York. We got started talking about it. I never got to it. So
we should probably hit the results. Period.
I did mention though that New York voted for Lost Mines of Phandelver as their number one. I didn't report. I did make a note of it in my data here that Curse of Strahd was number 2, and it was 2 points below Lost Mines of Phandelver, and that's how we got into Phandelver. There was actually a decent number of votes for Lost Mines of Phandelver. Colorado went to Lost Mines. Let's see what else. Kansas went to Lost Mines. Maryland went to Lost Mines. Missouri was Lost Mines of Phandelver. I said New York. It was number 2 from the outside the U.S. group. Let's see. Texas tied Lost Mines and Curse of Strahd. We had a couple more. The U.S. territories voted for Lost Mines of Phandelver as well. So Lost Mines of Phandelver actually, both in popular vote and electoral college, had got second place as the best adventure.
Phandelver did?
Phandelver did, yeah.
Fair enough.
So it did pretty well. And I just went through a whole bunch of states there, and I didn't write down the ones I just mentioned. So I'll have to try to remember that I went through all the Lost Mines one.
When do you announce the official?
Whenever we
winners?
decide that we're tired of talking, how much distraction do we want tonight?
Yeah.
Can I talk about Dragon of Icespire Peak?
You can. I can tell you that Dragon of Icespire Peak, which I abbreviated as DIP, got no electoral votes.
Wow, you're all wrong. Everyone's wrong.
Well, how many
Bad.
people actually have read or seen it? Because honestly, I didn't.
Yeah,
I never heard of it. I heard about it like on the list.
I tell you, it sells like crazy. It's a like the
The
Essentials kit. It sells like crazy.
Oh, okay.
So it's the adventure inside of the Essentials kit, and I think it is the most interestingly written adventure that has come out for 5th edition. And I think the model that it proposes is a really powerful one in that same in that same idea that Phandelver is built to be like your standard D&D adventure. So the way Dragon of Icespire Peak is written is like you start off in a town and there's a job board and there's 3 jobs up in the job board and you pick one and you go and you do the job and you get paid and you come back and pick one of the other ones and you go get paid and then there's 3 new jobs up in the job board and you can pick one of those and go too and you sort of gain level. It's like the most boring, straightforward way
Formula,
of like
yeah.
running it. But for brand new DMs, like that is such an easier way to go than like trying to figure out how to motivate your characters to want to go down whatever the bigger story is. It's a small book. Like the adventure book is like 32 pages, but it has like 20 adventures in it. You know, it's really powerful.
So I actually approve of this because our main campaign that Brandis runs, we're all members of the same mercenary company. We have multiple characters who swap in and out, and it's basically that. We have, we get jobs from the higher ups in the company, and then we, go and do them and come back. And as we do them, they're ones we care about and people we care about working for more and less. And there's a surprising amount of interest that come up out of that. So this is another, I haven't heard it. It's like the, Dark Horse Green Party candidate from wherever the hell who's probably awesome and believes in all the same things I believe in, but nobody's heard of him, so no one's votes for him. So that'll go on my list of things to check out later.
It's a really it's the first one that was designed to be potentially a one-on-one D&D game, so you can play with one player and one DM, which is how I ran it with Enrique Bertrand, the newbie DM. We went through the whole thing in a one-on-one game, and but it's got one fatal flaw. You want to guess what it is?
Kills first level characters.
Kills first level characters. Do not throw ochre jellies against brand new characters that don't realize that they split. Or hey, I've got one guy and all he has is a greatsword and he can't actually hurt the things.
Yeah.
Or let's throw were-rats at you, only nobody has a silver weapon yet, and now the were-rats are invulnerable. Or a manticore, CR3 manticore that could kill you with one round.
Ask Brandis about the slotty when they were second level in my game.
Unless they're tadpoles. It's probably not right.
Evil John in the chat points out he says that it's harder to vote for a small adventure than it is for a full campaign, which I don't know that the data supports, given that Lost Mines of Phandelver is our number 2 vote getter.
Right. Yeah. I think it's probably easy to forget Dragon of Icespire Peak, and I think you're right that it is relatively new. It's. I think it's a little bit newer than it's probably about a year old now.
Phandelver has the same advantage.
Or Phandelver's been around for 6 years.
Phandelver has the same advantage that Keep on the Shadowfell had, that Tracy mentioned, was the initial beginning
First
4th edition adventure that everybody played. So everybody was familiar with it. Phandelver has that shared experience.
And guess what? Guess what? Keep in the Shadowfell's big number 1 problem was.
Did it kill first level characters?
Killing first level characters.
Oh man!
Should we go through some more results?
Even the 4th edition first level characters are getting killed off in that one.
Go through some more results, and then there's another one that wasn't mentioned, and I just remembered it now.
Another adventure?
But that's also in the very, very basic, and it kind of counts, but kind of doesn't. But as 5th edition at all. But go
Okay,
ahead and
okay.
and give me
Well,
results.
I mentioned earlier that Alabama, that was I think our first announcement, went for Empire of the Ghouls. There was actually another state that went for Empire of the Ghouls that had a decent showing, and that is the state of Washington. Washington State also voted for Empire of the Ghouls. So we have 2 electoral votes that go to Empire of the Ghouls in total. And one of those was Washington, which is a big D&D state. Like, that's where they make the game, right? So
Yeah.
I thought that was telling for them.
There you go.
So, yeah, no, and once upon a time, like, I have oftentimes said that new settings are interesting and all, but I need a good, like, campaign to help me tell a story there, so we can do a little bit of a travelogue and visit some things. I have not thoroughly read Empire of the Ghouls, but somebody once told me that Empire kind of does that to a degree for the Midgard setting in Kobold Press. So yeah. You wanted to mention another adventure, and I'll tell you if it got any votes.
God, it certainly didn't. It went right on my head. But when it was still D&D Next, before it was 5th edition, there was a starter adventure that was like Caves of Chaos or something like that.
That was the playtest adventure, yeah.
Yeah, the playtest adventure that was I think it was Caves of Chaos. That was updated from an older previous edition adventure. It was the first thing that we played because we were playtesting this from pretty much when that came out, from the time that specialties were still a thing. And I really enjoyed that one. It was a very, very classic, bare bones, you're in here. It was actually the adventure where I went, hey, I actually enjoy 5th edition Wizards. I don't feel constrained. I had a really good time with it. It was very workaday, and it wasn't fancy at all, but I didn't hate it, and it didn't kill our first level character.
Yay!
Yeah.
So rethinking, I might have found a place, because the 2 ones I mostly cared about were Dragon Heist and Strahd, and in retrospect, I might have written that in as my 3rd, if I was thinking about what's a real good newbie adventure.
So I also have, speaking of classic adventures, Wizards has published 2 compilations, Ghosts of Saltmarsh and Tales from the Yawning Portal, that are sort of updating classic adventures. And one of those 2 got more than 1 electoral vote, and I'm curious if you think you know which one it was. Because I know Mike spent a lot of time with Ghosts of Saltmarsh.
I did.
I mean, Saltmarsh was going to be my guess, because I feel like I hear about that more.
Yeah, I gotta get Saltmarsh.
I've read more of Tales of the Yawning Portal, but also considering that Reaper did like this whole line of Saltmarsh compatible or Saltmarsh almost specific minis and things, I was like, well, it's got to be getting some traction.
So here's what I can tell you is that Ghosts of Saltmarsh received slightly more popular votes, but earned no electoral votes, whereas Tales from the Yawning Portal won Massachusetts, and also Nebraska had a tie between Waterdeep Dragon Heist and Tales from the Yawning Portal, so it got technically 1.5 electoral votes. But those were
just once again showing that the Electoral College is all sorts of screwed up.
And those were also low voter turnout states. So
there you go.
So it could be a little swingy.
Yeah. DM Sam says some real life electoral versus popular vote BS then, huh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because we all know Ghost of Saltmarsh is better than Tales of the Yawning Portal.
Well,
apparently
we all don't know that.
Well, yeah.
Let's see what other
Hey, I thought it was a very adorably made book.
Oh.
Which one? Saltmarsh?
Tales from the Yawning Portal.
I mean,
there were some of them where you had like the really like 3rd ed, 5th ed feel to them, and then you would look at the maps, and I was like, suddenly I'm like stricken back to second ed blue lines, and that really annoyed me in some of the books. And I'm forgetting which ones it was because I sort of speed reread a bunch of them.
Didn't they redo all the maps in Yawning Portal?
I think so.
Thought they did.
And there's some cool Dice and Logos action, but
Not
there's
in.
some.
I don't think in Yawning Portal.
Not in Yawning Portal, but there's some where it's like, ooh, those are weird, and they're using a font that isn't used anywhere else in the book. It's like, I'm not sure what happened there, but it was really weird to me. I think it's Yawning Portal that I was looking at and having that disconnect in terms of the style.
I mean, it would make sense because the adventures go from first to fourth level, first to fourth edition.
So
they're all over the place.
I mentioned that Nebraska tied between Tales from the Yawning Portal and Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and I think we talked about, was it California went to Waterdeep Dragon Heist?
Now, California's my home state. I'm originally from there, so
Dragon Heist actually got a couple of other votes. Minnesota voted for it, gave it their full electoral vote, and I think it was involved in another tie. Oh, it had that Virginia three-way tie. So Waterdeep Dragon Heist got 2.8 votes in our electoral college.
Mm-hmm. So where does that put in the
rankings?
In the rankings.
Let's see. There's first. That might put it as third. So the electoral college agrees with me because I had it as my third. So, and it just barely beat Empire of the Ghouls, which had 2.5. So it beat it by a third of an electoral college vote.
Right, because of strong grassroots campaign.
Right. Let's see. We talked about that one that had one. Did I mention Out of the Abyss that had a third of a vote? Yeah, because that was Virginia.
Yeah.
Tales from the Yawning Portal, Tomb of Annihilation. I think we talked about everything except for the number one vote getter now.
Yeah.
And
all right,
will
let's
it
have
surprise anybody? Mike, what is the number one vote getter?
No.
I'm sorry, say the question again.
What is the number one vote getter?
Strahd.
Yeah, Curse of Strahd. Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Iowa, Kentucky, Maine, Michigan, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Ohio, outside of the U.S., Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Tennessee, half of Texas, Utah, a third of Virginia, and Wisconsin all went for Curse of Strahd.
I'm assuming it also won the popular vote?
It also won the popular vote fairly considerably. I mean,
so
there were only two that had popular vote counts sort of in the upper echelon. I guess that you could say three, and those were in order: Curse of Strahd, Lost Mines of Phandelver, and then Empire of the Ghouls.
That was for popular. That's for electoral.
Vote.
Really? So Empire of the Ghouls in number 3.
Yeah, for popular vote.
Yep.
Fascinating.
What was the top?
With how many votes now?
With how many votes? Well, it's tricky because of the weird number thing, but roughly.
With how many single popular votes?
Yeah, I mean, it had maybe half of Curse of Strahd votes, maybe a little less than half of Curse of Strahd's votes.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, right, because of
the rank choices, and it's all weird. So.
So, yeah.
And then what were the electoral wins?
Curse of Strahd was the number 1. Lost Mines was number 2. Dragon Heist was number 3. Empire was number 4. And Dragon Heist and Empire were like within a third of a point.
What was the 4th most popular vote?
Empire of the Ghouls.
No, that was 3rd. You said.
No, Dragon Heist is 3rd. Oh, popular. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, 4th popular was Dragon Heist. So those two just flipped in the Electoral College.
They just flipped. Yeah.
Okay. And so which was 5th? Sort of the dark horse of the whole deal. I'm making him do math. I'm sorry.
Let's see. Electoral 5th was Tales from the Yawning Portal.
Ugh.
You okay?
And popular fifth was Tomb of Annihilation.
You okay? Interesting.
Yeah, so Avernus didn't place there, nor did Storm King Thunder. I'm surprised.
Yeah,
no.
nor Mad Mage. And
I look stupid.
And no showing at all for Rime of the Frost Maiden at this point.
No.
Rime of the Frost Maiden got a little bit of attention. It got a tiny bit. I think one person ranked it as its number one.
Okay.
So
a lot of people haven't run it yet, or they're in it, right? They just started it.
So Sam was the one person who voted.
Sam voted for it.
Sam was the one person.
Sam voted for it. Oh, Sam.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to rank it yet.
Well, enjoy. Sam can enjoy his Frozen Waste content.
Yeah. I just wish it didn't have 12 starter quests. Some of which won't kill you, and some which will.
I don't. Well, first of all, it has 2 starter quests.
No, it's got 14
it
starter
has
quests.
2 that you start with, and then it branches out in 14 different directions.
And everyone yells at me, and they're like, "You're not supposed to actually complete those quests until you do the other starter quest that will also kill you."
Well, yeah, no, I think that's fine. But you said 14, and you only start with 2. So, and one of them,
as a DM, I don't know where the hell to start.
One of them is a social encounter, so it's much more survivable.
Mm-hmm.
So.
That is true.
Sam points out that it's basically the same thing as the notice board that you liked
Except
about the Icefire Peak.
Has 3 choices.
and
I can put all 3 in front of the players, and they get to choose. In Icefire, I have to pick one of 10 towns to start in, and I don't know which ones I should start.
Yeah.
And some of them kill the players right off the bat. Some of the quests you get will just wipe you out.
I think that is a significant difference. I think.
There's not enough information and too many choices, so you have choice paralysis.
Yeah,
help me out.
That's understandable.
I paid $50. Tell me which one's the right.
I tell you what, I haven't.
Just the one that's full of slotty.
I haven't.
Yeah, that's not far off.
I haven't played through Frost Maiden, but I did play test it, and I play tested that first section specifically, and that actually went fine for me. I didn't have issues with the opening. My issue, as we discussed when we first talked about it on the show when it came out, is that the end of the story doesn't connect to the entire rest of the story. Like the narrative, it doesn't do a thing for me. But it's fixable.
So I did say whichever one won, I would make an effort to actually run. So I guess I have to run Curse of Strahd now.
Yep.
I don't know with what time I'll manage.
I never would have made that statement.
You've run Curse of Strahd.
I don't know what time I'll manage to do.
I know.
This. I said I would run at least one session of it, so it'll have to be. So
there is a version of Curse of Strahd. What is it? The Strahd Must Die Tonight, where you run the whole thing in one session.
Yeah, I ran Curse of Strahd. I ran a Ravenloft one shot, which is basically the super condensed Curse of Strahd this last Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that actually sounds super fun.
And they killed Strahd.
There you go.
I would probably enjoy doing the Strahd Must Die version.
It's pretty cool. It's like you got to get through the castle really fast before Strahd shows up and kills you.
Okay, so yeah, so now I actually have to find anyone other than Brandish who would be willing to play in this game. All right, so on that note.
All right, well, have we?
It will definitely not help me sleep any better.
We've got our results. We know how the electorate has decided. Democracy has been saved.
Are we sure that there's not a whole lot of votes still in the mail that we really need to count?
Oh.
A couple weeks from now in order to be sure.
We took this to the court, and the court decided that whenever I counted them today was the cutoff. Yeah. So,
that's about right.
The Supreme Court of Jeff has made a decision that the counting is done.
Wait. Was it a state court or a federal court? Because that actually matters.
They're both. Yeah.
All right. Before I go on a constitutional law tear.
The court of internet opinion. Yeah. Right. So, I think we're at a good place. We've thoroughly been distracted for I don't even know how long we've been talking now.
Hour and a half ish.
Yeah, the recording's about an hour 20. I think the stream is a little longer than that, but I think it's a good place to wrap this episode up and this conversation up, and then I can go not sleep for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'll go read New Curse of Strahd, I guess. More
That sounds
thoroughly.
good.
With an eye towards running it. Okay. Actually, it'll be fine. And it will be far cheerier than Twitter. So,
Yeah. I'm not going to Twitter tonight.
no.
I think I'll go watch the British Bake
There
Off.
you go.
That sounds good.
All right.
We'd like to say thank you to all our listeners who support us by shopping at Amazon or DM's Guild through the links at thetomeshow.com or who become our patrons at patreon.com/thetomeshow. And we'd like to thank our guests. Rabbit, where can folks find you?
Let's see. Actually, lately I mostly only hang out on Twitter. And I have a mostly defunct blog at decamanythings.blogspot.com. I'm actually wearing my Decamany Things shirt tonight.
Nice.
So
Hey.
yay, I'm at least on brand. Oh, but I'm Caudelock on Twitter.
Awesome. And Mike?
You can find me at slyflourish.com.
And twitter.com/flourish. Blah, blah.
Yeah, well, there's Twitter and there's Twitch and there's
Right.
YouTube now and there's my newsletter and there's Discord. So now I'm branching out from just the
Slyflourish.com.
Twitter. With slyflourish.com, you can find everything. You can find all the links to all the other places there.
All right, and if you want to reach out to us, you can email thetomeshow@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter. I am at SQUACH, although not tonight. You can find Tracy on Twitter. She is at Sarah Dark Magic. That's Sarah with an H, although also not tonight because she'll be baking with British people. And you can tweet the show. It is at The Tome Show, which I run that, so that's kind of also me.
And also tonight I was wearing my 4th edition shirt, so I was representing so that I Feel of Shame as a Minor Action
We've all
shirt.
got geeky shirts on tonight, right?
Yep.
I've got my
Yeah, it's very good.
ampersand.
I've got my Dungeon Crawlers
There
Society.
you go.
So we're representing our Brian
There
Patterson.
we go.
Definitely. And that's the Tome Show Election Night Special, where we distracted ourselves from the stress of the American election tonight, if only for a little while. In this episode of
The Tome.
The Tome.
The Tome.
Tome.
Maybe Sam will just keep us muttering the Tome at the end there.
There you go, just reverb it forever.
That's all the original one is. I put a bunch of reverb on it and had an echo.
and then I used to pretend the echo.
There you go. Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
So
Rabbit, it was
Evil
nice
John wanted us
nice
to
to be
not
honest.
stop the stream.
Yeah, nice
and
to meet you
the
also.
stream is still going. So I don't know what
Funny.
Evil John wanted us to.
He just wants it like all night long. Like he can
just
watch
keep
me
doing
watching
this
the
on.
British
Just
Bake
to
Off.
keep him occupied. Well, that is unfortunately not going to happen because I do want to get some work done tomorrow. so.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yep. I gotta run. I'm tired.
And
Time
Tracy,
change.
like-
Time
Tracy
change is
stood
throwing
in
me.
line for 2.5 hours to vote today.
Hey,
Yes.
good for you.
In the cold, my toes were hurting at the end.
Yeah.
But I
waited
voted!
about an hour. I waited about an hour and a half, but that was the first week of early voting here in Indiana. So
I had to walk across to my mailbox
Yeah.
across the street.
Yeah, we sent in our ballots like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, mine was
so,
like 4 weeks ago.
good.
So that was, that was the thing. But no, both my parents have COVID and my dad's in the hospital.
Oh,
so,
my God,
I'm
I'm
so
sorry.
So we've kind of been stress central. So this was
Oh.
really fun.
Well, good.
Good.
This was a really nice distraction, and thank you so much for inviting me again, Jeff.
No, this was good, and I'm glad that we did it. That was kind of the idea. I figured. In fact, we've had a pretty good number of viewers this time around. The chat was very active, and I think everybody was just sort of looking for a distraction from
Anything.
2020 for the climax of 2020, hopefully. For tonight, so I'm glad it worked. I think we should say goodbye to the stream, and then Tracy and Mike
Goodbye,
can go
stream.
pass out. So
Yep. Bye, stream.
it's good having y'all here. Thanks for joining us. Stream.